just had this sense that, you know what, for doing what I'm doing, which is editing other women's voices, finding women's voices that need to be out there, putting my own voice out there, you know what, I can be better rewarded and again have the creative control if I do it myself. So I took my editing skills, I took my writing skills, I took my creative artistic skills, and my husband and I set up Womancraft Publishing in 2014 to midwife my own and other women's voices that are often sanitized in traditional publishing, messages that are often sanitized. I'm not a fan of, 7-step books, kind of things that try and break stuff down into something that's far too easy, stuff that's very kind of shiny and promises everything and delivers nothing. That's not my thing. I would prefer something that is a little messy but rich.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. My name is Jennifer Way. I am an intuitive consultant and I am so happy that you're here. I am also working on 3 hours sleep, so my brain's a little scrambly. My guest today is Lucy H. Pearce, who is an author and the founder of Womancraft Publishing. I'm still kind of in disbelief that she said yes to coming on the show. She is the author of 10 life-changing nonfiction books for women. Yes, I'm reading, including 3 #1 Amazon bestsellers and 3 Nautilus Silver Award winners. And there's my cat. She is a sought-after speaker and teacher on women's creativity, cycles, and empowerment. We talk about what it is to be a woman today, to be a creative woman today, and what it is to be a cat owner. You'll also notice if you're watching on video, Lucy unfortunately got the scratch from her cat, who was kind of trying to give her like a massage on her head, and then he scratched her, and she said apparently it was acupuncture as well. It was so hilarious. I think that's the first time meeting someone when you haven't met them before, but you've only read about them and you know what their work is. I was so excited to see that Lucy is she's hilarious. So this interview is really important because this is going to be the first in a series of interviews that I'm doing with women who are really bringing divine feminine into embodiment, into form. As you may or may not know, that's a really important issue to me. And Lucy just does it beautifully. The way she expresses herself is I'm in awe just kind of watching her and listening. So do join us. I do hope that you stay for the whole episode. You're just going to hear so much beautiful information. I feel like she truly channels her higher self throughout the entire interview. So stick around and we'll see you inside. Cool. Right. Mrs. or is it Miss or is it Mrs.? Ms. Ms.
Yeah, because I kept my my maiden name.
Awesome.
Maiden name. It's interesting that we still use that, isn't it?
I know. Fair maiden. What a perfect intro. Lucy Pearce, welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I'm so thrilled that you agreed to come on the show. Without really knowing anything about what we do. But I'm just so excited to have you here. You are an author and a publisher, and your life's work is really bringing women's voices to the forefront. And it's just great to have you on the show. I think I said that 3 times. So I always, I get so nervous with new people.
That's me too. I'm shitting myself twice as much as you are, so it's grand.
Oh my God, I love it. And that's why we're self-consciousness. So, but okay, I'll try to do some real questions. So I would love for you to describe your journey, which I'm sure you've done a million times, about like into independent publishing. Like how did this come about? I know you're an author and that's kind of how it started, but how did that become the thing for you?
So I had been writing for several years as a freelance journalist. and had been the contributing editor at a fabulous natural parenting magazine, Juno, for 6 years. And I'd been blogging for, let's say, 4 years at that stage, had built up a lovely following, not massive, but really, really loyal, and global. And so the questions started coming up, are you going to write a book? And at that stage, no, I had no kind of plans on writing a book. Like at that stage, I had 3 children under the age of 5.
Wow.
So no book writing plans. And then, so when this is a muddly story, but we have to now go backwards again. When my first child was born, I asked somebody to get me The Artist's Way. I suddenly had this, I've got to get my creativity kickstarted again in an urgent, life affirming manner. Like, it had to be done. It wasn't just it would be nice. No, it was I have to do this to survive. And so I read it. I don't even think I finished it. I maybe got halfway through. And I now know that I'm neurodivergent, and demand avoidance is a big thing for me. So she was telling me to write 3 pages a day, and I was like, yeah, fuck that. And she talked a lot about God and kind of from a kind of a spiritual way that was very Christian and not where I'd ended up. And also a lot of stuff about, it was very versed in the language of the 12-step program of addiction recovery, which again it just wasn't my experience of life. And there seemed to be zero reference of what if you've got constrictions on your time, energy, and everything else because you've got kids. That seemed to be non-existent in her world. So those 3 things kind of coalesced in my brain. But he was my first child. Then I carried on, popping out sprogs as one does. Yeah. So fast forward then. So I was writing to stay sane. I was blogging. I was writing articles to stay sane. And I love my children, just to plop that one into. And then one night I was reading Christiane Northrup's Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom for, I don't know how many times I've read it before, and I hadn't seen this passage. And this passage described the creative rainbow mother. And it was like this passage had appeared on the page in front of me to be exactly what I needed to read. And she was talking about how the Earth Mother is nurturing and gets her kind of sense of self and belonging and satisfaction from nurturing other people, not me. And then there was the creative rainbow mother who needed to do her own creative work and to inspire her children, but not to be their everything. And I was like, yeah. So I went onto the internet and I was like, tell me more about this. And the internet said, we have one article. And I was like, what the fuck? So went on to Leonie Dawson's thing, read her blog about it. She was another trapped creative rainbow mother who everybody thought was an Earth mother because she also likes floaty clothes and also is neurodivergent. And she was the reason I discovered that I was neurodivergent, because I read her thing and I was like, oh my Lord. So yeah, and that was 10 years later. So she's been an important part of my life twice. Thank you, Lenny.
Yeah.
So slow down, Lucy. So
no, I'm neurodivergent too. This is like a dream for me. Like someone else who's just like me. This is amazing. Please.
Okay. So then I discovered I went to source. So the author, Lynn V. Andrews, I was like, okay, so she's written loads about it. And I ordered the book that it was mentioned from. No, there was literally 2 paragraphs. And I was like, how can you introduce this archetype to the world that is so vital and so needed and then not say anything more about it? So I did what Toni Morrison suggests, which is, if there is a book that you want to read that isn't there, write it yourself. So I decided to write about the creative rainbow mother archetype in my book, The Rainbow Way, which is like a version of the artist's way, but for mothers, people whose energy, time is severely truncated, and yet their urge and desire to create is massive and a driving force. And I gathered a whole bunch of creative women that I know and a whole load that I don't know personally, but via my blogging life, and got them to contribute their experiences. So this book I was really proud of, and it was a little bit, weird and woo-woo and out there. So trying to find a publisher was tricky. So I sent it round to the woo-woo publishers I know, and I got 4 rejections, and then the 5th one was a yes. But that takes time. And as we can hear, Lucy is not good at patience.
I love it.
So whilst I was waiting, that was about a 9-month wait, I decided to
A
write
real birthing for you.
Totally.
Let's just keep the theme.
I decided to write a little ebook as a sign-up gift for my blog. And so I wrote it in a month and then spent a couple of months editing it. I'm a fast writer when I get going. I do lots of reading beforehand, lots of editing after, but the writing bit is fast for me. Yeah. And showed it to a couple of people just to kind of run it by them, see what they thought. And they were like, Lucy, this needs to be a proper book. And I was like, okay. So I approached the women I'd quoted, authors up there who I, didn't even dare grovel at their feet. And they all gave me their blessing to use their words as quotations. I was like, oh, okay. So I decided to self-publish it, which was a whole adventure. So I self-published that. And then as soon as that came out, it was very well received by my bloggy community and the people who knew my work from magazine editing and writing. The emails immediately started coming in. We need a girls' version. So I wrote and self-published a girls' version of that. Then I got my yes. My book was published. And the experience of being published, I'm answering your question now, but you needed the background.
I'm following. Yeah, I wanted it all.
The experience of being published by a proper publisher was not as I'd expected and not as I'd hoped. The sales were fabulous for the book, but what I made from those sales was very, very little in comparison to what I made from my self-publishing sales. And so I was working on my 4th book, and I thought, you know what? Actually, I can do this. I know how to do this. I want to do it alone. I want to have creative control. I want to earn the fair amount of money from my work. So fuck it, I will. So then I kind of had this strange conversation with the head editor at the magazine. And I still don't quite know how or why it happened, but I said to her, look, would it be possible to get a raise? Because I was working on smaller than Peanuts, because it's, a fabulous collective community project. But I'd been working on Peanuts for 6 years. And she said, I'm really sorry, Lucy, there isn't any more. I said, that's fine. I'm afraid I'm going to leave. I'm setting up my own publishing company. I hadn't discussed this with anyone, including my husband. But I just had this sense that, you know what? For doing what I'm doing, which is editing other women's voices, finding women's voices that need to be out there, putting my own voice out there, you know what? I can be better rewarded and, again, have the creative control if I do it myself. So I took my editing skills, I took my writing skills, I took my creative artistic skills, and my husband and I set up Womancraft Publishing in 2014 to midwife my own and other women's voices that are often sanitized in traditional publishing, messages that are often sanitized. I'm not a fan of, 7-step books, kind of things that try and break stuff down into something that's far too easy, stuff that's very kind of shiny and promises everything and delivers nothing. That's not my thing. I would prefer something that is a little messy but rich. I prefer something that is raw and real to something that is really shiny and polished. So that's what we do. We do that sort of books. We do the sort of books that will excite and challenge and inspire other women, not just as an intellectual exercise or an entertainment thing, something to pass the time, but books that really meet you where you are and transform you on various levels and give you tools to transform your own world and your life in real ways, not in shiny fake ways, but in real ways. So that's what we do. And now we're here in end of 2022. So we've been going just over 8 years. We've published, I'd say nearly 30 authors around the world. We've published 40 something books. Yeah, here we are.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, you have no idea how timely this is for me. It's just such a beautiful, and I don't even want to say inspiring because I feel like that's such an overused word. It's just, it's highlighting in a way, just it's so necessary to spotlight these voices, and not in a way of like comparing to men or pulling away from men, or because there's always that sort of reaction that you're trying to just do this on your own, or you hate men, or I don't know if any of that stuff has come up like along the journey, because it's like this is really more like for us by us kind of a thing.
Totally.
It's not
It is for
really.
women by women. And the only, but as my children always say, but daddy works for you. And yes, he does. Like daddy is our layout guy. He is our tech guru. He is our website guy. He is in charge of our bulk mailings. Like this company would not exist without the amount of labor he gives. But it's not his field in that sense. It's not his driving passion like it is mine. So I bring the other bit to it. But no, the only thing we've ever had is a few people saying, but what about our sons? And I understand that, I do. But women's voices have been silenced or left out of conversations for as long as anybody living can remember, and far, far, far beyond that. So I'm not apologetic about that. It's not like there are lots of places that men can't be published. And it's not like that there's not lots and lots and lots of books out there that are available for every gender or no gender. So this is what we do.
So, I will say to the listeners, your books you both that you've written and published have been like in so many times have been called life-changing. I mean, how does it feel to know that you're doing that? What does that have you? It's funny because I was gonna say like who changed your life, but we know, but it's like how do you receive that? How do you
That's
kind
a
of
really, really good question. The honest answer is my ego does a, oh, that's nice. And the rest of me inside goes, but you could have done this better and you could have done that better and you're not as good as this person. So, it's, and then there's another bit of me, I think my deep, deep soul bit that just feels ease and balm, like I'm doing what I'm here to do, and feels met in that moment, and knows what that means, because I know how that feels for me when I read other people's stuff that meets me there too. So I know what that experience is, and it's very humbling and very wonderful, but it's odd being that for other people, because in my mind, I'm the messy person. I'm the person who's not doing it all right, the person who has to apologize for themselves. So I have these two selves. I have Lucy, little L, who is, you know, muddling through life in a neurodivergent way and has a very messy house and is muddling. And then I have this deeper self, Lucy H. Pearce, who can channel pretty incredible stuff through, and who is lit up by art and reading and research and connected to something deep and powerful, and is witnessed and appreciated out in the world. And I'm very grateful for that. But I find it tricky to balance those two existences, because Lucy H. Pearce isn't who's doing the shopping in the supermarket and curled up in a ball because she's having a meltdown. So, but somebody might come up to you expecting you to be Burning Woman, and actually you're there and you're shaking because you're finding it hard to talk to another human that day. So I find that contradiction that I embody very tricky, because I feel like I owe people what they're expecting when they meet a heroine, when they meet somebody whose work they love, when they meet somebody who they have built up expectations around and a deep relationship in their soul, in themselves, when they're reading my work, that I'm not going to live up to that, because in my shaking, messy, everyday self, I'm not that. So it's tricky.
Or you're both, you know?
I am both, and both are real. Like, but it's tricky.
Yeah.
And it's tricky.
Yeah.
How about and in
I love it. That's so very true. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that aspect, the fact that, you know, we do tend to pedestalize people that have, from our perspective, perfected something or done something that we couldn't imagine going out there and doing. So it's such an interesting, you know, paradigm in a way where you're, you know, on one hand, yeah, you've got these two sides, and people are interacting with the reflection of themselves that you're giving them. And it's hard to,
so here's a really interesting quote I read 2 days ago, which says that it's from Tim Minchin, who I adore. He's a songwriter and performer, Australian, and he's incredible. Anyway, he was saying that when people meet their heroes, it's not that they want to meet their heroes, it's that they want their hero to meet them.
Totally. Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
So that's what you're
I feel
getting.
that right there.
That's what you're getting. You're getting someone coming to you with their expectations of who you are, and they want to perform themselves almost to you, and it's a very odd thing,
because they feel like you see them.
Yeah. And it's just strange, because that's not usually how we interact on face value with each other. But the other great thing about the way that I write and what I write about is that people feel safe in approaching me in a very honest and real way. I'm not good at small talk. I would never win an award for that. But I am good at real and raw and true. And people come to you and they share their most vulnerable selves just like that. And that's something you don't get in our culture either. And that I really value, because that's the sort of world I'd like to live in, is where we meet each other in our true, most vulnerable, most authentic selves, not in our shiny, fancy selves. So that's very special. Like, my books give people permission to show up like that in the world, just to one other person, and that's me. And in having done that, they think, oh, I've done that. I could do that. Let's start a little women's circle, because we could all do that together. And then they get used to doing that. And then they start being able to say, actually, this is how I want to show up in the world. And so they get to do that on a bigger thing. So that's exciting for me, that the finding of courage that people get from my work, because I found the courage, because they know how scared I was putting this stuff out into the world. And that's the tricky bit about these kind of dual self, is that the stuff comes through Lucy H. Pearce, but it's me who has to show up on the internet, you know, for people to potentially shout at or tell me I'm shit or whatever. So yeah.
That's my favorite part. No, I'm just totally kidding. Can't hate it. Well, this is all perfect because I kind of wanted to talk about Burning Woman a little bit. So what would you describe is the fire that fuels our strength as women?
Go on, ask me that again in a different way.
Yeah, okay. What is it inside of women that burns so strongly that it can be scary and it can also be sort of all powerful? I don't know if I.
There we go. That's the question. So what I have learned is this, that thing that burns inside us that longs to be expressed in the world is that which has been punished most heavily, legislated against. We have been educated against it in everything from schools to churches to bedrooms. We have been taught that what burns within us is dangerous on every level to our survival. So the thing that we most long to express, that is our deepest selves, our deepest passions, our deepest desires, our deepest drive, is known from centuries of history to be potentially deadly to us. So our instinctual selves are not okay. That's a lesson that we have learned generation after generation after generation. And it's not just one aspect of ourselves, it's our sexual selves, it's our creative self, it's expressing our voices, our opinions about anything in any way, in any forum. It's our experience of the sacred, the divine, the magical, the mysterious. It's the power that we hold in our bodies and our hands when we create, when we give birth, when we channel stuff, knowledge through us, and we don't know where it comes from. All of that, patriarchy says, can't be doing that. That's dangerous. So yeah, it's that. It's unlearning that fear response to our own power.
Ooh,
And
say
finding
that
a
again.
way,
Unlearning.
unlearning our fear response to our own power, and then learning to express and enact that power in a way that doesn't cost us our lives now within patriarchy.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was like gospel. All right. Enough with the Christian references, but that was just to see you even, I can see you channeling that, from your higher self, or whatever you want to call it. It's just so much needs to be said and needs to be heard and it needs to be felt,
And it's real, like it's not abstract. Like, on the front page of every newspaper in Ireland today is the face of a woman who's 48 and just died. Because patriarchy, because she had a cervical smear test, which the results were lost, and then she was not informed about it, even when they had discovered the mistake. So there was a space of 5 years where her life could have been saved if somebody admitted that they had made a mistake. But instead, that woman, who had 2 small children, has died of cervical cancer. And in the last 5 years of her life, has spent every bit of her energy banging her head against the health system here and government, ensuring that this does not happen to any other woman in our country again. She has been a force of extreme power, and yet she has paid with her life because patriarchy, because the most basic thing of testing your entrance to your womb, people didn't do what they were supposed to do, and nobody would admit it. And there are over 60 women who have died because of this scandal here. So women are paying with their lives. We see the uprisings in Iran for a woman, not even who didn't cover her hair, but whose headscarf had slipped slightly. That this is acceptable, that a young woman can be killed because a part of her body is showing by the forces in charge of her country. And it's not just her. Dozens upon dozens of young women have disappeared at the hands of those forces in these protests. Disappeared. For the simply being able to stand up and say, this is not okay. There are women in Afghanistan who the Taliban tells the world governments that, oh yeah, it's fine, this is Taliban 2.0, we'll be lovely to the women. And first of all, women weren't allowed to be in their jobs. Then the girls weren't allowed to go to school after the age of 12. Then no girls are in school. Then no women can leave their homes without a full covering and the company of a man. Now they've closed all parks and amusement parks to women and children. Only men are allowed to go to them, just for the reality of being born in a female body. Like, that is the sin that these women have committed, that allows the patriarchal forces to control every aspect of their existence. They may not sing, they may not play music. That if they go to court, there has to be 4 women's voices to stand for one man's voice. This is the roots of what we have experienced in this culture, in my country, in your country, and it's still there. It's still there in the way that women aren't believed when they show up to A&E. Like, there was a recent report out about 6 months ago saying that the incidence of women presenting with heart attacks and being sent home because there was nothing wrong with them was 3 or 4 times higher than with men. And yet, if they were seen by a female doctor, that diminished. Like, this is insanity, that we are still having to say, we are humans, we deserve fair and equal treatment. And this is just on a basic medical level. This isn't saying we get to, channel through our spiritual stuff or do our witchy stuff. No. This is just basic.
Yeah.
So this isn't something that is irrelevant to now or unnecessary for now. And I feel that it's really important that women understand that when they feel that desire to express themselves rising in them and they are shut down by fear, that is real. Like, that fear has been informed by history and by looking at the news. So you're not crazy, you're not stupid, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, this has been inculcated into your body on purpose.
Yeah. You will have
And
things
therefore,
taken away
when you
from
start to be able to express yourself creatively,
you'll lose your job.
When you start to be able to express yourself creatively, you have to take care of yourself. You have to do it in safe spaces first, so that you can build up your skills and tools to be able to deal with the very real existence of patriarchy still.
Yeah. What do you feel about, what would you say about sort of the internalized patriarchy that we hold? And sort of, or would you even use that kind of a phrase for it? I think one of the terms I throw around with, there's a term I always throw around with my friend, and I think Mona El-Tahawy is the one who usually says it, the foot soldiers of the patriarchy. They were saying that, think of like all the women in America who are just voting in all of these Republicans and the GOP. It's like the foot soldiers. Are we going to reach them?
Women have supported it. Women have supported the patriarchy, because they have wanted to stay safe and because that was their only access to power.
True. Yeah.
And so we have internalized these ways of being because that's the way that our society that we inhabit works.
Yeah. And keeps us safe. That's the big part, and secure. Yeah. How do we not are we concerned about holding in our rage, or can we just let it out? I'm asking, it's going to be up to you. I'm asking you permission. But is it,
All right, well.
I've been raging lately, but I've been raging in a very sort of calm way, where I'm finding finally a sense of power where my words can cut through pretty easily because I've found a center of power that simply doesn't rely on that other perspective. Whereas before, I was very much dependent on that other masculine patriarchal perspective to feel validated, to feel safe, to feel desired, whatever you want to call it. And is it safe for us to rage? Is it?
What do you think?
I feel like I'm encouraging a lot of women to rage lately, or just to really open their eyes and really understand their own power, and to understand where they might put themselves or set themselves below a masculine perspective, and how just pervasive that is in everyday life, like everything. I think
You
rage.
see, to me, that sounds like learning, empowerment, and understanding the underlying power structure of things, educating yourself, all of which are vital. To me, rage is a profound and uncontrolled expression of anger, which can be immensely destructive. Do I think that's a good idea? Depends on the circumstances. I think we live in a culture that, in some way, says that rage is good, so people perform rage. It's quite performative to kind of, throw your power and your energy around. We see it in lots and lots of kind of movies and TV. If someone's angry, they're like slamming stuff down. And people, that kind of performative rage, which is an expression in the moment of I've had enough. But does it really achieve anything in interpersonal relationships where you're going to want to salvage something? I think not.
Yeah.
Does it draw a line in the sand and say enough is enough? Absolutely. So the fact that we're seeing this happening in Iran at the moment is incredible and fabulous. And that needs to be done, because when you're dealing with a force that uses force, often rage is the only option. But rage makes you vulnerable if you are up against power which has a lot of heft behind it. So it's a vulnerable place to be, in a place of deep rage, but it is a necessary thing at times.
So well put. Yeah, I can see that.
But it is like throwing fire. Like, everything can go up in flames and you can't control it. You don't know where it's going to stop or end, or what the repercussions are going to be for you. So to me, it is a last ditch human survival response.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
But
yeah,
but the analyzing, the getting angry, the taking action, the seeing creative ways of responding to something, the drawing your line in a sand in other ways, the putting up your boundaries, all of that. More. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You should write a book. You should write a couple. Oh, I'm like, ooh, I just need to take a deep breath. Deep breaths, everybody. It's just so much stuff that I love. Everything that's coming out of your mouth. Are you open to sharing any of your spiritual practices, or do you have spiritual practices? If no one's telling you that you have to write 3 pages every day.
My spiritual practices are in constant creative evolution and are deeply personal. I don't tend to kind of go looking for a guru and desperately want to be somebody's not my thing. I don't need to be initiated by anyone. You know, the stuff's pouring through me. It's whether I want to engage with that or not, whether I'm prepared to learn more about it, follow it where it leads me, which is often into places that I find deeply uncomfortable, which are places that I wasn't expecting to go. But that's my commitment, is to follow that, whatever that is, and it expresses itself in a kind of a tripartite way, and always has done, through my creativity, through my sexuality, and through my spirituality, through my, you know, praying side, blessing side, ritual side, however you want to. But that's my kind of my experience of it. But it's not something that I feel comfortable about. It just is. And either I honor it or I don't. And if I don't, I tend to get very disconnected from myself and feel yuck. And if I do, I feel more deeply alive, more deeply connected to the world and to other people and to my body and to whatever it is that is coming through me from the beyond. So I honor that without a path and without a specific language even, and yet I write books, so I have to find language for it constantly.
And yet you described it perfectly. It really,
thank you.
Yeah. What would you say, and we're going to wrap up a little, but what has been your most valuable lesson in running your own publishing company that is successful?
That to honor my own limits, to honor the limits of my whole team, and to create and follow our own rules and honor them always. Whenever I don't, that's when we run into problems, because we're overstretched, we burn out, we try something that isn't quite us, and it just doesn't, it's just more of a struggle than it needs to be, or stuff gets, you know, it's really trusting the limits and boundaries that we've set on ourselves. Now, we are a company within a capitalist culture, which says growth, more equals success. And so to constantly put brakes on is flying in the face of all wisdom that is out there in our culture, which says the bigger the better. And at Womancraft, we live the small is beautiful thing. So, you know, we may have 40 plus books a year pitched to us, but I'm committing to only taking on one of those a year, so that there is space for one of my books, one of our other most prolific author, who's our best-selling author's books, and one from an existing member of the Womancraft author community. That's what we can do. with sanity and with health, and being able to be kind to ourselves and our authors and our families. That's what we can do.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Holy shit. This has been, I'm like, I just want to sit and curse because, which is such a like crass way to follow what you just said.
Okay,
I'm
you
like,
ready? 30 seconds, curse.
Holy fucking shit. This is fucking amazing. I'm so fucking excited that you're here. Oh my God, I just pulled something in my back. That was really good.
I saw the side one. There we go.
Oh my God. That shows you how much I've been taking care of myself lately. Well, so Lucy, oh gosh, I'm so happy to be talking to you right now. Tell everybody where they can find you, what's new. I said there's a new book club, there's a new website that you guys have. So
which is really special. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, book club was an idea that just popped into my mind, as everything which, including the birth of Womancraft and each of my books does. They just appear there. Yeah. And I was like, why don't we do a book club? That's insane. People love our books. They love connecting with each other. We've got the wonders of Zoom, so we can connect all of our different authors and readers around the world. So they've been fabulous. They're really special. We do one every 2 months with our existing books and for some of our new titles. So I get to have a lovely in-depth conversation with the author. So the two people who know the book the best are diving into it. We're also diving into the backstory of it that people won't know about. Yeah. And then we tend to weave in some ritual as well, some readings from the book. It's open to the community to ask questions. They're really, really special. Like, I have a fear of strangers and people. And what I've really realized from doing these book clubs is none of these people are strangers. Like, we've got super fans there who I recognize their name because they've, ordered so many books from our website. We've got our authors wanting to go and see what our other authors are talking about. We've got people who I don't know, but they just meet us where we are. And it's just like, yeah, our readers are really, they're our people. And that's really special to connect, because working with books in an online publishing format, like, you don't get to meet a huge amount of people. I don't do many kind of in-person events. So it's really special just to share space. It's sacred women's space. And it's really nourishing and really healing. So they're completely free. And you just sign up, and if you can't make it live, you can get the recording, but they're really special in person. So there's that. There's our website, which is brand new. My dear husband has spent months upon months working on that. Yeah. So that's womancraftpublishing.com. And you can see, not only the books, but about the authors and the cover artists. We get a lot of love for our covers. We put a lot of time into finding majority female artists whose work we want to feature. And that's another really special bit about our books, is just, they're not kind of generic covers. They're beautiful women's art. I can be found on lucyhpearce.com. And I tend to hang out most on Instagram, Lucy H. Pearce, and Womancraft Publishing is also there. That's our favorite social media. We're on Facebook too, but it's less favorite.
Okay. Cool. Thank you so much. I do hope that you would have time to come back maybe next year. I would love to have you on the show again. This has been a blast. This has been so much fun. I had no idea how hilarious you were, and I'm so happy.
People are often surprised about that because my books are quite serious. And also, I tend to make people cry in every interview I do too. So both those things are usually the case.
I'm like, yeah. Well, we can't be scared of crying, so it's perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody, come together. Free. Everybody, get together. Free. It's okay if you can't stand to let her dance. It's okay, it's your right, come on and take a chance. A true romance when you dance. Free. Don't be in love with the autograph. Just be in love when you scream that song on the free. Everybody, come together. Free. Everybody, get together. Free. You can feel it from the palm that you're holding on your arm. Cool hands from the get-go. Can you feast on the real one? Don't be in love with the autograph. Just be in love when you love that song on the lawn. Free. It's okay if you can't stand to let him dance. It's okay, it's your right, come on and take a chance. A true romance when you dance. Free. Everybody, come together. Free. Don't fall in love with the autograph. Just fall in love when you sing your song on along. Take a chance.